What is up, everybody? It is your girl, Jice Johnson with the Black Business Initiative. And I just want to welcome everybody on while we get started talking today. Y'all know I'm not in my regular spot because I know y'all probably recognize this background right here. I'm at my girl Michi's house, and we're over here getting stuff done and getting stuff ready for the Black Agenda. So I wanted to still get on here and make sure that I did my live stream today. So welcome everybody on in. And we're going to talk a little bit about some Black complicity today and just really digging into what that means and why that's not acceptable inside of our communities. So while y'all come on in, I'm going to, of course, throw out all my plugs. Let's make sure that you head over and text Black Agenda to 484848. Stay updated with what we're doing. Make sure that you go over to the BlackAgendaOnTour.com and sign in and get your name and your email on the list there. So that's all, those important things, ways for us to keep in touch. We're getting ready to come up real soon here on Denver. I'm excited. We were actually just down at the venue kind of doing our last walkthrough. So I'm a little bit flushed and everything. It's been out in that sun. It's a bit hot out here. So, but we're getting ready to make it happen, right? So very excited about that. Also want to let y'all know you can head over to Grind with Jice, Patreon at Grind with Jice if you want to work with me, if you want to get into the private Facebook group that we have and some things like that. So those are all my major plugs. If I get a chance to drop in the Black Agenda's media page, make sure that you like that. I will drop that in at some point, but make sure that you like that. We're going to have a couple of shows over there. Some other contributors are getting ready to come on board with us. So we're just making sure we start to get that page rolling, but that's going to be coming soon. So, all right, I ain't got a whole lot of time today, y'all. We got all these things happening. And so I just want to make sure that I dug right in here. And I want to talk a little bit about what it means to be complicit and why Black complicity is not tolerated. And, we all kind of throw around this idea of these words, being on code, right? And I think it's important when we think about what being on code actually is and what that means. And acknowledging that there's a certain way that we need to act and behave that is towards the benefit of us all, right? So it's not over here to be, fake, that fake kumbaya type of stuff, but there's a certain way, right? And that's even why you look at something like a street code. There was the Thug Life Code. There's the New Era Street Code that's out right now. When we look at those types of things, they're not sitting here saying that, we're all going to be perfect. We're all going to sing kumbaya. That's not what it's saying at all. It's saying there's certain things that we want to be sure that we don't engage in, like we've acknowledged that these things are not okay. And so, Black complicity, that's one thing that's not okay, right? And so first, I want to break down a little bit, especially because I don't have a lot of time. I'm going to try and go through this kind of quickly, but what does it mean to even be complicit? Like sometimes, if you follow me, I like to break down words. I like to break down things sometimes that we use because all of us are not necessarily, on point with something. And most of the time we're not going to ask. We just going to hear it. We just going to keep rolling. Like, I don't know what that means, but we're going to try and put it in context or we're going to let it go in one ear and out the other ear. So when somebody is telling you that you are being complicit, they are basically saying that you are involved with doing something that's wrong, right? In the course of the law, it's like involved with doing something illegal, but ultimately you are playing a role in, or you are a part of doing something that is wrong. And so what happens in our community is we have a lot of excuses for complicity. That's basically what it is. We have a whole lot of reasons and excuses and things that we tell ourselves is okay that we did this wrong thing to one another because a whole lot of reasons I'm going to get into, right? So we cannot allow for wrongdoing to happen to us in a particular by us, right? It's one thing, not a good thing, but it's one thing when there is wrongdoing inflicted on us. It's another thing when we are the ones inflicting that wrongdoing on ourselves. And then we have some reason or excuse or whatever as to why we felt like that was okay. So I want to give you this example of something that we're actually getting ready to talk about here in Denver because this is something that happened in Denver. And just the idea or the notion as to how we get wrapped up in our head that we are right, even when we're doing something wrong, right? So there was a guy out here named Brandon and Samantha Pryor. They have couple small kids. They have a son that is 7 years old, and their son was handcuffed. Now, first of all, let me acknowledge that Brandon and his wife, Samantha, are very active in the community and not always, they're very disruptive, right? They're very disruptive to the system. And, not only do white people not like that, but Black people don't like that. And as much as we know that the system needs to change, we always like to police the way that we change the system. So we don't like people who come in and really disrupt the peace. We want to be very civil about how we change the system, right? We want to have conversation. We want to be very diplomatic. We want to, be very peaceful in how we go about changing the system. And I think from experience, we kind of know that shit don't work, but yet and still, that's the way we want to go about it. We want to have meetings and go, sit in boardrooms and we want to, have this friendly conversation where we can sit down for hours and days and weeks and months and explain to white people the shit that they know but don't really want to acknowledge. I recently sat inside of a meeting here with the governor's office, here of the state of Colorado, and they're trying to explain to us how we can be a part of the boards and commissions. And I'm like, forget all of that. We don't need to continuously try to assimilate, right? We need to disrupt the system. We need to stop trying to act like the system as it currently is works, except for we're just not participating, right? And so what happens is that we try to go about it in these diplomatic ways, and it just doesn't work. So one of the reasons why Brandon Pryor, in particular, gets a lot of pushback and a lot of flack is because he is someone who is like completely disrupted the system, in particular in the area of schools. So he works with a couple of different movements, but I believe most predominantly, and then if I'm wrong, someone can correct me, but I believe most predominantly he works with Our Voice, Our Schools. But really he's going in there, and even before his children were really deep inside of the school system, he's been out there heavily on the Denver public school system, advocating for change inside the Denver public school system. Loudly, like he's up there practically cussing out people on the board, telling them they ain't shit, going and doing live videos, being at all those places and spaces where we acknowledge that by and large our voices are not being heard, and by and large we're actually not there. And so he was in a position where when they were trying to hold daytime meetings that the average family couldn't get to, he was there. When they were trying to hold, meetings late at night, he was there. When they were trying to do votes and have these open forums that technically the community can sit in on, but most of the community does not sit in on those school board meetings and things of that sort, he was there. He was pushing out information when, nope, this is false. Let me show y'all how this really went down. And over here, oh, y'all tried to pull the wool over our eyes over here. Nope, that's not going to work. I'm finna expose you. So he was loud. He was loud. He was rude. He was disruptive. He was all them things that we don't like. And so not only has he gotten a lot of pushback. Now, let me say this, in case you are here in Denver, he's not perfect, right? But he's an angry Black man who did something with his anger. So I'm not giving him any excuse for the things that he has done, the way that he has treated certain community members and things of that sort. I'm not giving him any, room on that. What I will say is, from my personal experience, he has come back when he's seen that maybe he's overstepped or overreacted in a way. From my experience with him, he has come back and he has made apologies for those things. And it takes time for us to change. And we have to recognize that there are places that we have that when we're angry, that we need to have those outlets, right? And so over the last couple of years, we've seen some of those things. We've seen rallies and protests and things like that. And that is an expression of our anger. But he didn't want to just rally and protest. He took out his anger by actually going to the people and going to the institutions and being very loudly disruptive about what they were doing. And really publicly putting out on display what they were doing, right? So I give him major props, give him like big thumbs up for all that. So anyway, so at this point, just, recognize that potentially there's a target on his kid's back. And that's something that, excuse me, y'all. Ooh, sorry. I told you I was outside in the sun. I'm trying to keep my allergies in check, so please forgive me. Ooh, sorry. Okay. So he's over here being loud. And I think sometimes that puts a target on his back, on his children's back, potentially, especially because they're in a public school system and in a school system that he's really, pushing and rallying against, right? So with all that being said, now his son, and you know, the details of that, thank you, sis. Thank you. His son, with, you know, with all those details or whatever, I won't get into too much of that because he's talked about it himself, but he's actually going to be talking about it after Black Agenda this Saturday. And so we'll have some of the, you know, some of that recorded. Y'all do know that we're not recording all the Black Agenda because y'all not gonna get it that easy, right? You got to come and let's meet in person and let's talk. But we are going to be recording certain pieces, and that's going to be one of those pieces that get recorded. So we'll, you know, more of his story will come out. But here's the overview of this. The woman who actually handcuffed his child, so his child was upset. His child is 7 years old. From what I understand, they were claiming that his child could not be consoled. And so, you know, from my understanding, he wasn't doing anything violent. He wasn't breaking stuff. He wasn't throwing nothing. He wasn't hitting nothing. He was just upset, and the teacher could not really calm him down, right? And so they call in the security guard, basically. So they call in the police is really what they do. And then from there, this police officer proceeds to handcuff this 7-year-old child. Now, the police officer basically states this is a Black woman. So the police officer is a Black woman who is also a mother of young children, right? So it got really ugly and contentious because, you know, of course, Brandon like totally busted her out. Like, listen, this woman did this, right? And so, you know, I'm not going to say that he did it the right way, but he did it his way. He did it the same disruptive way he had been doing everything else, which is if you are going to be a part of this system and you're going to be complicit in this system, then basically his attitude was like, fuck you, I'm not with you, right? And so, so the way this kind of tried to get played out was she tried to kind of play the victim role. Now, I don't know this sister, but she tried to play the victim role in this. I'm a Black woman in the community. I'm a mother. Excuse me. I'm having a hard time over here today. I'm a Black woman in the community. I'm a mother. I'm all these things, right? And so, so she has tried to basically make it seem like she is the victim of him bullying her. You know, my information is out online. I have people calling me and all these things. And he's never called, to my knowledge, again, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but he's never called, to my knowledge, for anybody to do any physical harm to this woman, harass her or anything like that. But he's basically been like, you're not with us. Clearly you're on their side. And so, you know, therefore we're not with you, right? So you got to go over there. So when all of this came about, this woman basically says that her reasoning for handcuffing this 7-year-old boy is because it was a part of her job. It was her job. That's what the policy was. So therefore, that's what she did. So therefore, she's not wrong. She's not wrong. That's bullshit. That is a prime example of Black complicity inside the system. You are absolutely wrong. If you work somewhere and your policy is wrong and you still follow through on that policy, in particular against your own people, you are complicit. It's not tolerated. We're not having none of that. Now, she has room to grow. I'm not saying we just exile her out, right? But I'll tell you this, I bet you she will forever going forward think twice before she handcuffs a Black child and thinks about whether or not this is something that she should be doing, right? And so yeah, I agree, right? So first of all, handcuffing a 7-year-old child never makes sense. Exactly. How does that calm down a child, right? It might restrain them, but it certainly doesn't calm them down. And then she certainly is part of the largest domestic terrorist, you know, gang in America. I agree with that. But my issue is in all of that, right? Even when we see Black police officers, you know, who are doing the most, the issue is it is being complicit. And so, no, you don't get to do that, right? We need to be on code. That's an opportunity to be like, nope, you're off code. I don't care what your job is. And part of the issue that we have had inside of our communities, and this complicity really goes back to something like meritorious manumissions, where the idea is that I'm going to look out for what's best for me, right? So when you have a policy that is directly in opposition of, or oppression of, or harmful to the people in your own community, and you still enforce that policy, then that is you looking out for your own good. You want to protect your job. You want to protect your well-being. You want to protect and make sure that you're straight, right? And if we really think about at the heart of meritorious manumissions, this was an opportunity to take the weak-minded people in our community, in our group, and say, you have an opportunity to do what's best for you. You want to earn your freedom? All you got to do is make sure you let us know when they're getting ready to plan something. But them and those are your people. So you're going to tell on your own people, you're going to do something that is negative to and for your own people in order to make sure that you as a person, that you're safe and that you're okay, right? So that individualistic thinking is what keeps us in a perpetual state of oppression. It's one of the things that keeps us in a perpetual state of oppression, right? It's one of the things that makes you basically complicit inside of our oppression. And that shit cannot be tolerated anymore. So we have to get to a place where we call it out. Now, sometimes we might have to just cut somebody off. Y'all already know Harriet Tubman was very clear. If you don't even know that you a slave, like if you ain't trying to keep coming, you ain't going back. There's no going back, right? You either coming all the way to freedom or you're dead. Because what you're not going to do is you're not going to go back and blow up all the spot of what we got going on, right? So she was very clear in that. Like, you're either coming with me or you're dead because you ain't going back, right? So it's just the idea that, and I'm not advocating for us to go out and kill anybody, but it's just the overall idea that we need to be very clear and recognize that there is a code, there is a thing that we need to be doing, and that we need to be moving forward in this process. And if you're someone who's getting ready to set us back, like, you're cut off. I'm sorry, but you're not with us, right? So with this situation, and I'm just using her as one example, but this is like a prime example of being complicit because you're worried about following a policy. You're not worried about the impact on that young child. You're not worried about how that's going to impact him going forward, which he is in therapy, right? And his family has said that publicly, so I'm not putting out any of their information, but I'm saying, like, there's ongoing things that have now happened with that child that is traumatized because you just needed to follow the policy instead of standing up for the right thing to do against our people. That's being off code, and it's being very complicit with the systems that are oppressing us. And when we recognize it, you, me, we have to say, no, ma'am, no, sir, not approved. That doesn't work over here. It's not tolerated. That shit is not tolerated. So, you said, thank you. I'm getting better. I don't know what that means, but I appreciate that. I've been doing this for quite some time. Maybe not on YouTube, but if you're here locally, I've been out here for a while. But overall, it's about being conditioned and being comfortable with her conditioning. Exactly. And so we just have to really begin to recognize that situation and begin to call it out, right? And in some of those other places, and I'll just, I'll go into a little bit more of how we're complicit. And then I'm gonna have to get out of here early today, y'all. I apologize, I came on late, but we have a lot of stuff to get ready for tomorrow and for Saturday. So unfortunately, my time is limited, but this is just an important conversation for us to have, right? So another area where this is happening is when we're okay with violence against ourselves, right? When we see violence against ourselves, it's one thing for white people to show no sympathy. It's one thing for there to be no remorse from people who are not us. That is what, the whole idea of violent white racism is. That's the whole thing of what it looks like to, think that there's white supremacy, right? All of that is, and we see it being upheld in a lot of places. People who are not white uphold white supremacy, uphold this idea that Black people are at the bottom of the totem pole, and that we are subhuman and that we deserve to be treated another way. But the reality of it is that when we believe that we should be treated in these certain ways. So we give the excuse. We'll see somebody say, oh, well, he didn't listen to what the police said, so that's why he got shot. What? We'll see somebody, shoplift and say, well, that's why they got that, right? They shouldn't have been stealing. Like, at what point is stealing warranted by death, right? Why is it that we give the pass to these oppressive systems to say, hey, you shouldn't have done that, right? So have we not already been down that game? Like, haven't we already, shuckled and jived and shuffled and jived and done all that? Yes, massa, and been lowly and held our head down and smiled and didn't look you in the eye, right? Because as soon as we do something that is assertive or aggressive, maybe wrong, maybe not. At this point, all we have to do is be accused of being wrong, right? And then we give our oppressors a pass for exerting violence on us to the point of death for these minor infractions, right? I mean, are we supposed to be thrown to the ground because we jaywalked, right? Are we supposed to be shot because possibly we shoplifted? Did y'all just see this just happened in the subway? And the last that I saw, the details weren't actually clear. It looked like there were two stories that were maybe mixed together, but the news actually, the media actually chopped up the footage and put it out there as though this black man was being aggressive towards the police, and then the police tased him, right? But when they actually saw the real footage, this dude throws his hands up like this, and then the police officer tases him. And then in the official report that was released after they've seen the footage, the police officer or the sheriff's department then says that he had a stance that he was getting ready to fight. Whenever is this the I'm getting ready to fight you stance? Where? I'm from Oakland, California. I ain't never been like, bitch, I'm ready to fight you, right? I've never seen that. Can somebody tell me where this is the stance of I'm getting ready to fight you? So how is it that we're okay with having violence inflicted upon us and we give them the excuse and the okay and the pass because we said, well, hey, you shouldn't have been ready to fight. You shouldn't have talked back. When does talking back warrant violence? You shouldn't have, there were Black people who said that the little girl who may have stolen a dollar Barbie doll out of the dollar store, maybe, right? Because at the time, they weren't even sure. It was a 4-year-old child. It wasn't like the adults went in there and was raided and robbed the dollar store at gunpoint, right? Possibly a small child walked out with a toy that her mom didn't see her take. And so this was okay then for the police to pull up guns drawn? That's okay? So obviously not all Black people feel that way, but when you find those coons that are saying, hey, they shouldn't have stole something, that's why that happened to them, those folks, they're being complicit in the system, they're off code, that shit is not okay, they need to go, right? So the other part about that, and then this is the last one that I'm gonna get into before I get out of here, is the fact that we try to police our activism. And I spoke on that just a little bit when I talked about Brandon Pryor, because I see this a lot and it happens a lot. I get these stories often, even just here, like on a local level, I see these stories where we try to tell people it's not okay to be angry in a way that they're angry, right? So when there were riots, first of all, you don't even know who was out there instigating stuff, but it's not okay to throw rocks at the police. It's not okay to bust out windows. It's not okay to cuss, right? I had somebody who asked me, do I cuss in front of my children? Yes, I do. And I feel like I am a fucking fabulous mom, right? So if we're worried about me dropping an F-bomb in front of our kids, we're worried about the wrong things, because there is so much more that my kids need to be worried about than policing their language. When they turn 18, they finna cuss anyway. Everybody knows when you was in school, you was finna cuss. I know when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, army, all of that, I cussed, right? And guess what? My mom does not cuss at all. My mom and dad did not cuss around me at all as a child. My parents were my mom is Jesus's best friend, okay? My mom answers the phone, praise the Lord. That's how my mom answers the phone. They did not cuss around me at all. My mom wasn't one of them like women who went to church and lived that way and then came home and lived another way. We had no alcohol in our church. We were not, sex wasn't even a conversation because you couldn't have it unless you was married. There was no cussing in my house. That's how I grew up. And I still was cussing in elementary school, middle school, and high school. My mom just didn't hear me. So if all you worried about is your kids hearing a cuss word, you worried about the wrong thing, because you're not going to shield them from any of that shit. But there's bigger things that we got to be worried about, right? But it's interesting because this is a part of my activism right now. I'm boots on the ground activist out here. I do shit. I have stuff going on. But this is a part of me getting out my message and the things that I see in our communities and working to get our communities on a similar page and moving us forward and giving out information. Yesterday, I did an entire podcast talking about how to get inside of the rental real estate industry. So you can go check out Boss Up with BBI. That's my plug. But this is a part of my activism, right? And so why is it that we feel like we get to police each other on our activism? And I'm not specifically calling out the woman who asked me that. That's just an example. But I just got a call. There's a young man who has been coming on the tour with us named Young Activist. And y'all should go and check him out. He does some dope videos. But we put him on the ticket. We had somebody out here who said, "Oh, well, I'm not sure if we're gonna come because you guys have Young Activists on the ticket." This young man, he's 20 years old, right? He did a video saying, "Why y'all women out here dressing your girls up like hoes," right? So when you listen to the video, basically he's saying, "Why are y'all sexualizing children? Why do you have babies in crop tops and booty shorts and teaching children how to twerk, right? Why are y'all doing that to these babies, right?" And then he said, then you wonder why they grow up to be this certain kind of way. Why are y'all doing that? Stop doing that. That was his message. Then you have people who want to come back and basically they didn't like the delivery of his message. Like, who are you? If you don't like the delivery of something, go somewhere else. You don't have to listen to me. There are people who do far worse cussing, say far worse things than I do, right? If you like somebody who's about to kumbaya and not curse, there's a whole bunch of folks that's out there that's like that. Just as an example. But it's the same thing in the streets. If I'm angry, why are you telling me that I can't throw something? You got white folks who lose a game and turn over and burn cars, but I can't be like, they don't even have anything to be angry about. Are we policing what they do? Because we turn around and turn around, quite frankly, and we police what we do. When we have a right to be angry, when we have a right to be upset and to want to lash out, right? And so I'm not a person who lashes out. If you're a person who lashes out, I don't think I should police that, right? So unless you're causing me or mine physical damage or physical harm, I'm going to let you do you. Matter of fact, I'm going to try and keep everybody else away. Like, if you want to throw rocks at the police, I might try and make sure the police just stay the fuck over there because they got shields and they not hurt. Right? So that's another way of being complicit, is when we try to make it seem like we have to behave in one way when we're angry. That's right, Nails and Glitter. We're not allowed to be angry. So we don't get to police how we do our activism unless we're actually causing harm. There is a point in a place where people are actually causing damage to their cause, or they're causing, actual harm, right? And I think that there are places where we can begin to redirect. But the way that we do it is, I'm not supporting them because I don't like the way they did something. I'm not supporting that because I don't like how they said that. I'm not supporting that because they look too black, right? And I talked about that a couple of days ago, because we are at a place where we don't even like being black. You want to dissociate yourself from what it means to be black. You want to dissociate yourself from angry black people who have every right to be angry in this country. So those are some of the ways that I've seen. And I had a couple more down. Maybe I'll end up doing a part 2 about Black complicity, but unfortunately I gotta go. But I just, those are some of the ways that I've seen us be complicit. When we say that we're doing something against our people because that's our job, that's the policy, that's what the law is, I don't care. None of those things are reasons and excuses to do something against us. It's never okay for us we are never to be the ones to say it's okay for violence to be enacted against us. And it's not okay for us to police our activism. So those are some ways that I see very frequently that we are being complicit. We are participating and involved in the wrongdoing against our people. And so those are the ways that I want to highlight. I might be able to get to some more at another time, but like I said, I got to go, y'all. So please make sure that you go over to the BlackAgenda on tour, get your tickets. Denver, you only got 2 days. Chicago, you basically got 2.5 weeks. We want to see y'all in the building. Atlanta, we're coming to you right after that. Make sure that you text BlackAgenda to 4844848. Go and check out my episode on Boss Up with BBI if you are interested in getting into real estate. That's a very technical, give you some breakdown on how you can get into some of those things. Make sure if you want to connect with me, you guys, you go to Patreon at Grind with Jice. I know I spit all that out real quick, but I gotta go, and I will see y'all next week. I will see some of y'all this weekend at the BlackAgenda on tour out here in Denver. All right, y'all. Until next time, peace.